Hello everyone, this is Michael from Kendo World, and thank you for joining in to the latest KED Talk. I'm here today with Kazuyo Matsuda, 7th Dan Renshi from Japan, but Kazuyo has been living in England, in the UK, since 1993 when she came there to study. She's been actively supporting women's kendo in the UK and other European countries for several years, and she's had about 40 years worth of training in kendo, and she's also the leader of the Kodokan Kendo Club in Watford in Hertfordshire in the UK. Last year she started the Fine Ladies Kendo Worldwide magazine, a kendo magazine focusing on women in kendo. So I thought it'd be a good opportunity to talk to her about the magazine and the things she's trying to cover with it. So, Kazuyo, welcome to KED Talk.
Hello. Well, thank you for inviting me for today's talk.
Yeah, no problem at all. I'm really interested to hear about your magazine and what you're trying to do with it. First of all, just said in your little intro at the beginning that you first came to the UK in 1993. That was for study, is that right?
Yes, that's right, and it's a very long time ago. I was very young then. Yes, I came to study, and for a year or 3 years or so, and just life continued, and I also changed my subject from art to design to architecture, so that took a long time for me to complete the studies, really. And at the end of it, I was lucky to find a job here, so I decided to stay. And that carried on, and it was not really enough opportunity for me to kind of decide to go back for good. So that's where I am.
So you were already training in kendo when you came to the UK?
Yes, I was Sandan then. So I started when I was 6 and through to high school time. When I graduated high school, then I came here. So there was a continuation of training. And there was a time that a junior kendo club was starting in 1993 called Kodokan Kendo Club in, at the time, Croydon. And a group of people gathered, and I've been there like a few times there, and then they decided to move to Chalk Farm, where there was a Japanese school. And so children who finish the school on Saturday can just stay there and then just join the club. And that was the idea. And so I just followed them and joined that club. At the same time, sorry about that. At the same time, I was also UPL Kendo Club member. You know, the time was no internet, and my flatmate at the time was Korean. She was a Korean lady, and she practiced kendo too. While discussion, Kazuyo, you need to find a kendo club in London. And so I went to Japan Center, and there would be a notice board, and lots of things would be advertised there. And then there was a kendo thing in there. So I called the number, and that's how people used to find out things. And that was Japan sensei there, spoke Japanese. And it kind of went like this. And so I joined the UCL Kendo Club, Wakaba Kendo Club. And so that was my first half of Kendo career in the UK until I moved out of London and I joined the Kodokan Kendo Club.
So what was the...
And yeah.
So how was the Kendo situation in London around that time in 1993 when you went to study? Were there many clubs? Because there's quite a few in London now, although I've not had much experience of training there myself.
Yeah, sure. Lots of clubs, but then we just in one place, and Wakaba was really great because it accepted children and adults, so children's class and adults class to follow after the children's class finished. So I would stay on for the adults class and then the pub, and where in pub we discussed a lot of things and exchange information, and there are lots of other clubs, so they would come and then I would go there, and then it was like that at the time, you know. And so yeah, I would go Hagakure Club in Bermondsey, like near London Bridge. There were also Imperial College Kendo Club there already. Mumeshi, of course, I would go to Mumeshi from time to time on Sundays. Or well, other places too. Yawara was there, I think, at the time. There, I wouldn't go in 90s, but maybe in 2000s when I got involved in British Kendo kind of official position. So I would go many places. But in London, the UCL was quite a big club then. You know, lots of students would join, and so there was students kind of community there, and at Wakaba there was juniors community and parents group, and then at Wakaba adults there was just adults group, and I think I knew many people through there and learned English there in the pub.
Fantastic. There's one thing.
Yes, English.
So most of my Kendo, well, I actually started Kendo in Japan. So I've only a couple of times when I've taken my Bulbu and stuff back to England, specifically London. And yeah, I've trained at the Wakaba and Hizen, UCL. What's the one near Elephant and Castle? I forget the name now. But every single one that I went to, we always ended up in the pub afterwards, much more than we did training in Japan. Yeah. So one
that was an important part of.
Yeah. It's after Mumeshi pub, Wakaba pub, UCL pub, Hizen pub.
Yeah.
What's the others? I can't remember. All of them. It was the pub. Even the one I went to in Cambridge, at Cambridge University, I think it was. We ended up in the pub as well. One thing I wanted to ask you is my impression. So I haven't had much experience of training in Kendo in England. But my impression of it is there seem to be a lot more women practicing. The ratio of men to women in the dojo seems to be greater or a bit more even than what I find here in Japan. Would you say that's correct?
Really? Oh, that's interesting because the statistics that say that there are more women in percentage than any other country. So about 30% Kendo population is women. And here I figure out that it's been always 10% is a rule of thumb for any countries. And Europe too. I'm not sure about America, but 10% is a good figure for women. But it depends on the club. So we're talking about country by country. But recently, when I looked the figure last year, there was some confusion of how to count the university students or female in the area. I wasn't really given an explanation, but in England, in the UK, the percentage had gone up. So it was about 12% Kendo population in the UK was women last year. So I think it's growing, interestingly, yes. But I think there are more women practicing Japan, I mean, in terms of our percentage-wise.
Maybe it's just the clubs I go to here. My regular Sunday club, there's, I think, 4 or 5 women there. But a couple of the other kind of big sports centre dojos, very, very few.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a bit different, like London, I suppose. There was a lot more students, I think, there when I trained there. Has that changed a lot from 1993 when you first moved there? Are there more women practicing now than back then?
No, I think there were less. But then, the environment was very different too. So, we talk a lot about the facility. So there would be a changing room for women. So we would change in the toilets or some kind of closet kind of place, or shower, no shower. And then there used to be a kind of the culture that Kendo was for men. So women really didn't have much space, but I think for me it was easier to mingle because I was already Sandan when I came to the UK. And I think in a way it was much appreciated in the club situation. So there was a small group of women in, for example, UCL, and Hizen used to be UCL, so UCL Hizen kind of split in one time, but then Japan Sensei used to have quite a large group of women, female students at the UCL, and that kind of group was nice, but then the problem is that women after the university, they just leave and not staying with Kendo, so that's the problem with the university situation, I think. Just 3 or 4 years, and then some may come back later on, but lots of people just leave as the club is just no more.
I see. We just had actually someone mentioned in the chat that currently in Qatar, there are 10 women members in Kendo clubs there, which actually is about 30% of the Kendo population in that country. So that's a fantastic ratio.
Yeah.
Yeah, and most of them are Muslim as well. So it kind of, hi Kazuo, so it kind of makes you think, everyone thinks Islam is restrictive against women, but actually the girls love it. They really, really enjoy being able to put on the armor and, get out of the house and fight.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I never thought that.
Yeah. One very strong member is from Jordan, and she just is so passionate about Kendo. She's training to be a pharmacist, actually, in Qatar. But she sends me messages all the time. She can't wait for Kendo to restart properly. And so there's a high level of commitment amongst the females in Qatar. So I'm trying to get them to buy your magazine.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. That's great to hear that there's so many practicing over there. So one thing I also mentioned in your introduction was that you've been teaching in different seminars around Europe or taking part in different events around Europe. Is that mostly in a teaching capacity?
Do you mean in different countries?
Yeah. So is it more you've been traveling to these countries as an instructor?
Yeah, it's the whole thing is quite strange, really. Just to give you a background, I went to Germany for the first European Kendo Ladies Kendo seminar run by Sato Rie Sensei. Sato Sensei was the captain of 1987, the first WKC that had a woman in it, not as a formal section, but so she has a long history of teaching and also being in ladies team. And so that was fantastic. And I went there twice. And back then, the German Kendo Federation had support for the ladies Kendo and so on and so forth. I cannot see any ladies seminar without the Federation support. It just doesn't function like that. So all the countries that I've been, like Greece or Sweden or Germany as well, Spain, even Ukraine, there is a kind of allowance, the understanding of just a package of ladies Kendo section they want to develop. So they support. And other countries, just they're not interested in women's Kendo, or maybe there isn't such a thing. So ladies Kendo, no way. Maybe they don't even want them there in their practice, because some people just think that lady is just gonna be a problem in the sessions. So they're gonna just level down the class situation. So cannot practice the high level training exercises because there are ladies there. But so there are kind of different levels of understanding of what ladies Kendo is or should be, or is there something, anything like that, or what, So, and then when the federation changes its policy, they just change the kind of policy towards ladies Kendo too. So it's an interesting thing to see, and how people make the seminars happening. The organizational background of the seminars always interests me. And there are just a few countries that they were lucky to have the opportunities to run such, even just groups training together, women only. So yeah, that's a kind of complex thing, ladies Kendo, in terms of organizational positioning and the policy, understanding, and if there are good teachers who knows how to teach women, such group can have ladies for a long time. Other groups, they may not have the interest long term, so they just leave. So I don't know if I answered any part of the question.
No, that's fine. So then you ended up starting was it you that started the Fine Ladies Kendo seminar in the UK?
Not really. When I got involved, I was called by Paul, who was Kendo Bucho then in the UK, and Honda Sotero Sensei ran the first ladies Kendo seminar in the UK in the previous year. So I came in to lead the seminar. That back then I was quite young, but then ever since I got involved in organizing and inviting teachers from other places. I invited once Christian David Sensei from France. And then in 2011, when the earthquake happened in Japan, Ozawa Sensei didn't come in March. Usually he comes to the UK to run a seminar end of March. But it was too close a time to the earthquake, so he decided not to come that year. But he came in July, and he was writing on the Budo magazine the history of and the future of female Kendo, which part you translated. And then she introduced me to Kobayashi sensei. He said that I should contact her and invite her to the UK because she's getting older. So I did. I contacted her. And then the following year, 2012, she came to run the seminar. And she was 73 then.
Wow.
And that was really fantastic. And that really coincided with the World Championships in Novara that year, 2012. And the seminar, the ladies' seminar, was a week after that event. So lots of people kind of made the trip from Italy, UK, and then back to their own country. So we had a lot of ladies joined then. And that was really eye-opening. I hadn't seen Kobayashi Sensei before, but she's the pioneer of the female kendo in the history. So we had a great seminar there.
What sort of things did she cover in that seminar? What was different, say, between a seminar that both men and women can take part and that seminar?
She does have a thing called Kobayashi method, and that's designed for women. And so physique, mentality, and the way to approach exercises and kendo was all for women. So, for example, the exercises that we had to do to make the step further, firstly, was to use the right muscle groups. So, well, physically, women and men are different, and women, of course, are weaker physically. So we have to really focus in the areas like the triceps and the inner thigh muscles. And so exercises were designed for strengthening those muscles and muscle groups that we need to use to do kendo altogether. And so that was really different. Also, she is coming from pre-war time. So a lot is using the sword. So Bokken exercises were really interesting too. She would do some things that other teachers would say don't do. Things like try flat foot, put your left heel on the floor and try and see what you can do. And things like that from a different point of view, and look at the movements differently and analyze. She does a lot of analyze herself, and so to design, and she's always constantly thinking. So that was in 2012, and she'd gone ill. She had a serious illness the following year, and everybody thought in Tokyo. She has a large group of female students in Tokyo, and that group is called Fine Ladies. And so we took that name to the UK seminar from the following year when we got the permission from her. Anyway, so she got ill, and then everybody thought that she wouldn't be able to practice kendo anymore. But then 2 years later, she was taking a lot of rehabilitation works, and because we started the Setsuko Cup, Kobayashi Setsuko Cup, so we had a female-only competition during the seminar, and that was coming to the third cup. She was determined to come back for the third Setsuko Cup. So she said, I'm coming, so you need to make sure everything's good. And I'm still doing the sightseeing, so make sure that sightseeing's good. And then she did come. And so, yeah, that was really, really nice, and 2-year seminar experience with her. But in between those 2 years, 2012 and 2015, she didn't come for 2 years. So her kind of right-hand person, Inoue Sensei, came to cover. But she's really similar to Kobayashi Sensei, much younger in 60s, but she covered everything that Kobayashi Sensei would have done. So ever since after that, 2016, since you've come back, until last year, the seminar didn't happen. We just had the Zoom. And maybe this year the same. I'm still thinking, because it's happening in June, the best time of the best season in the UK. And so seminar is always kind of warm-ish. The first year was a bit cold and a bit wet, but after that, it was always nice.
Yeah, it remains to be seen whether people are going to be able to gather still in this June. It's not that too far away, is it? Especially, I don't think you'd be able to get anyone coming from overseas.
Yeah, that's kind of a long way, Danny. Not yet.
So it's interesting you're talking about Kobayashi Setsuko Sensei. It kind of leads us very nicely into the magazine that you started in 2020 called Fine Ladies Kendo Worldwide. And an interview with Kobayashi Setsuko is actually kind of the main interview in that magazine. And I think in that it talks about that she was actually only the second woman, was it, to pass 7th Dan?
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. And she, in that article as well, it talks about, what a great plug.
Yeah.
So that's her on the cover, right?
Yeah, that's right. Inside. On sale. Yeah.
So what was the reason for starting that magazine then?
It was always in my head to interview Kobayashi Setsuko Sensei. And it has been a bit difficult because when I visit Tokyo, then there's really little time to meet her. I would go for one class, and then there are lots of people there. We will have dinner together, etc., etc. But then there's also been a pressure from her students because she's very, very special teacher, and she had specific ideas about Kendo itself. So they're a bit protective. Don't know. Yeah. So I've been thinking about it for many years to interview Kobayashi Sensei, but then this coronavirus happened, and we couldn't travel anymore. And I thought, because we started the Zoom session for Kendo classes, and I knew how Zoom can offer us like these interviews was becoming possible, and then maybe it's a good opportunity to do that right now through the Zoom kind of online interview. So I just asked her, and she said fine. So that was what I wanted to do for a long time, but then at the same time, I thought I would interview many more women, because I know that there are lots more women that we haven't met and maybe we haven't known before. And I thought, coming to this kind of age, we think about the past and the future in a different way from when I was younger. So I think, and also women often don't exchange broadly. We tend to kind of make small groups here and there, and we're really comfortable within that group and not really reaching out outside that group. So I thought maybe something like this can connect people, not only within the UK, but, if I made this magazine bilingual, Japanese people can read this, and then maybe it's good that they know what's happening outside Japan, and so on and so forth. And I thought, and then there were some volunteers who wanted to help me, to really good team members for me now, hardworking, Michelle and Rena, one in Scotland, one in the US. So we're three kind of working closely together to get the idea together and produce the magazine together. And at the same time, we developed this website where we can have a forum. And also, we've been uploading a few free articles so people can read in Japanese and in English. Some ideas to come, for maybe in the future, French and Spanish and other languages, but we're not coming to that point yet, maybe in the future. But yeah, so that was the beginning really. And I had some time to try out what kind of time scale that we need to produce such thing while I was followed. So that kind of worked really nicely with, time-wise, because it's quite labor-intensive to put together everything.
Yes, it is. I mean, we've got a lot of experience of that. I can't believe when... so I wasn't involved in Kendo World right from the beginning. I came into it a few years after, but I can't believe they were putting out 4 magazines a year when it first started. It's just...
Wow, that's a lot.
We're finding it hard to put out 1 a year now at the moment. But so the real catalyst for you starting the magazine was you had this idea about interviewing Kobayashi sensei, and then suddenly have the time, I suppose, because you can't work, and then so from when you started, when you first thought, well, I'm going to do this, until you published your first issue, how long did that take?
2 months.
2 months?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I think that you've put us to shame there with getting magazines ready.
I mean, we have 64 pages here, so not like yours, and we have English and Japanese together, so that's, making it double already. And the other thing I do is to create videos. So the interview like this, not professional you do, but I interview them and edit and then put subtitles in. And sometimes people talk very, very long time, and I don't want to make the interview 1 hour. So edit that and then question and answer, very, very basic. Mm-hmm. But putting subtitles in and editing, that takes time. And that was a hard bit as well. And I was learning how to edit video as well. So, but that was fun. Really, really, I'm learning really a lot talking to those amazing people. I've just done the 6th interview last Wednesday. And Jin Kodama sensei in USA, California. And she was an amazing person. Everybody has different things to say. That's amazing thing too. Not like everybody, telling me what they had problem with, or in the past there was no changing or something like that. There was always interesting stories behind every one of them. Slightly different stories, and sometimes very, very different stories. Why did you start Kendo? It's not like because my brother started Kendo, I started too. Nothing like that. Nothing at all like that.
I think
so. Talking to them is really eye-opening.
Okay, I think I read with Kobayashi sensei, it was just her family did Kendo, so there was no choice really. Just everybody. She had 3 sisters, was it? I think.
Yeah.
Everybody did Kendo. It was just
she's
okay.
Yeah, her case is special because she started Kendo pre-war. And there's nobody else started Kendo pre-war today, ladies Kendo Club.
Mm-hmm.
And so, she would do ashikake, kumiuchi, and things like that.
Yeah, I found
that kind of time.
You don't.
So, yes.
You don't see any like leg sweeps and grappling anymore, but it was quite interesting what you said about that. So you had the big interview with Kobayashi sensei in that magazine, and then also you had Looking at it now, Kishikawa Michiko Sensei from Brazil and Christian David from France as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you have people from South America, Europe, and obviously Asia in that. So this first magazine came out in January or February 2021. Which year was it?
February. We had a few problems with the printing company as well because of snow as well as coronavirus issues. But the final printed magazine came out a week after. But the digital magazine came out on the promised date, 15th of Feb. And so our magazine is biannually. So the next one will come out mid-August. And then number 3 will be mid-February again. I don't think we can increase this, frequency with that us working full time, and we're just trying to find spare time. But biannually, we can do it, and that's the kind of thing that I came up with doing that first one. First one was really crazy, but
I think
second one we're taking more time to plan.
The further you go along, I think the more you'll learn, and the more streamlined your operation will become. And we're still learning.
Yeah.
I think we're back in the day when Alex and Hamish started Kendo World. I mean, there was no internet, I don't think, back then, or it certainly wasn't what it is like now. And they had no idea about publishing or anything. They just kind of winged it, I think, and it's kind of grown into this thing. So I've just seen, actually, you've just started publishing or publicizing on Facebook about the second issue. So you said August will be that?
Yeah.
So who do you have in the August edition or issue number 2?
Yeah, so interview-wise, we have Fujino Tamae-sensei. She's from Tokyo as well, but she's the famous Nakamura Toki Sensei's daughter, and so everybody would know her. Really nice story, very, very interesting. And Jinko Dama Sensei I mentioned earlier from California, and there's a link between the two, you'll find out. And Su Raitori Sensei from New Zealand. They're the 3 for the volume 2. And we'll have the part 2 or the follow-up from the last article, Paul Budden's The Dawn of the Ladies Kendo. And it's called the New World, Brave New World, The Dawn of the Women's Kendo. And Kate Sylvester's WKC Women's Participation number 2. And we'll have the second parts of the female Kendo Bogu discussion with Michie Imai Sensei. We will have a small corner of kind of essay by high-grade female Kendoka, thinking outside of the box. And this time we have Kondak Kaneda Akemi for that. And we have a new article on Takano Hatsue, the first 7th dan in the history. She's late, Takano Hatsue, but we are revisiting her, and there will be an article on her. Very, very exciting.
Yeah, great. So
we cover Japan. There are too many pioneers, so we're going to have Japan for some time, every issue. Pioneer from Japan, pioneer from, then number 1 had Europe and South America. This time we're going to North America and New Zealand and Oceania. So the volume 3 is going to be the rest, Asia and Canada, and that's cover the whole continent.
Wow.
Yeah, so you know what's coming. Yeah.
So in the second edition coming out in August, then you've got an interview with Sue Litolis. Well, I've met Sue a couple of times when she's come to Japan.
Right.
And she was she the first woman to take part in the World Kendo Championships? Or when she did, there wasn't a women's competition. She was part of the men's team, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, there are actually a few female who did that around the time or before her time. So the first lady was Kazuko. She was from USA or Canada, USA, North America team. And she was on the first World Kendo Championships. And I think was the only one really to take part in the main section, possibly until Sue took part as the main, because lots of females took part in the Goodwill Taikai, which was at the time very, very separate and separate day, separate competition. But sometimes it was kind of a mixed event. So there was a main tournament and then a Goodwill Taikai would come into kind of program. But yeah, she would be one of the few ladies who would take part in the main section or mixed in the male competitors.
But even when I believe in the earlier days of the World Kendo Championships, even though there was a women's side or a women's competition, it wasn't official. I believe was it Glasgow?
Right, yeah.
Was it Glasgow was the first official women's competition?
Yes, that's right. 2003.
2003, right? Yeah, and then it's a real shame that the obviously for everyone, not just the women, but for the men as well, that the World Championships was cancelled, the one in France, because it was going to be the first one where usually you have the men's individuals on one day, men's team on one day, and then women's team and individual on the same day, which is. It's a really long day, especially if you're competing in both. But it was going to be separate, and which I think is absolutely right. That have women's individual on one day, men's team on the next.
Yeah.
Because I can imagine it just be so hard. It'd be so hard if you're taking part in the individuals, and that's a long day if you're just doing that, and then have to go and fight in the team. I remember when we've been there to, video and get materials and stuff on the women's competition. It's a long day doing both, and it's only fair. It's only right that they're now starting to do them on separate days. So it's a real shame that it didn't happen this year.
Yeah. I think, organizational point of view, maybe there wasn't enough time, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday is already, quite difficult. But then you have the meetings on Thursday and referees thing happening as well. So it's more kind of time commitment that everybody has to put in. So I think it's also more important that female section is recognized and respected as a official category as it is, but having that kind of treatment isn't really doing anything good for the competitors, as well as the status as a whole, as in organizational understanding. And they need to take women's action seriously, and the competitors and the official groups will need to be taken elite, athletes. And it's happening now. So it's good. Gradually, we're moving on gradually.
It's a step in the right direction, definitely. So
I think so. Yeah.
So, I mean, there's one thing, if you know, recently in March that we went to the All Japan Kendo Championships, where they held the men's and the women's competition on the same day, obviously because of Corona. The regular dates for the competitions were cancelled, and they had to do them together. So one thing I think that we mentioned in one of the videos we put out about that is in the women's competition, it was all the judges were women. And obviously in the competition, they were all men. So hopefully there'll start to be some women judges, referees in the women's version of the WKC as well. Do you think?
Completely. Yes. Yeah. Makes sense.
Do you think that's going to happen at the next one or not?
The WKC?
Yeah, the next World Champs. Do you think they'll be? They'll be
no, WKC because of the not in a position to say, but the procedure for the selection of the referees is difficult. Unless that changes, things like that cannot happen. That's for sure. When I look at European Championships, that's hard as well, and the selection procedure is very similar. But you need to attend these referee meetings, and then you need to be chosen from the federation that you are in, etc., etc. And so, women in that category, I have seen a few female referees in the European Championships, but I think it's coming on. French Kendo Federation, for example, they are. We can see that they are kind of pushing to that direction. So more women are coming on. Other countries, it's difficult. Even for the countries, they have 7,000 female teachers. They're not coming up to the referee position. And yeah, they are getting involved in coaching and managers' positions instead. So it's a kind of balance, really. And but when I see the juniors category in European Championships, it's kind of sad that it's really the juniors level that we need to look at and to kind of see their future. If they continue, they will be the female team members, like what French do. They look after the junior, like teenage junior, and then they may continue adults. That stepping stone is really working well, but even French at the European level, because of maybe the referee and because it's mixed competitions, the girls' kendo is really hard to see any further, because if you look at high school competition in Japan, they are of course separate, male and female, and you can see already the male kendo and ladies kendo different. The scoring is a bit different, and the tactics different, and all that. It's not happening here. So, for example, girls need to be powerful and really good to Tenouchi to try and make ippon in the junior mixed competition here. And it's really hard on them because physically it's not possible. And so you need to be physically able and well-structured and be strong to be able to make ippon. So that's kind of, when I see them struggling, I feel really sad. Something needs to change.
Okay. So hopefully with things like your magazine is going to be able to encourage more women into kendo and get more women to develop and study harder and study more and stuff. Where do you see how your magazine is going to develop in the next few years? What would you like to see happen?
Because we are at the moment looking at pioneers, and really the history is important for me, and then hopefully for many other people. And I see that there's a demand of this kind of information coming through. So I think the magazine is going to help these people, not necessarily everyone, but those who are interested in history and looking back what people used to do and where the women's kendo come from and where we're going. Where we're going is something that needs to happen by studying what happened in the past. And so I hope to kind of make a connection between the past ladies kendo and current and into the future. Maybe it will take some years, not like, first 3 or 4 issues, but years of this after we kind of gradually separate from the pioneers section and then coming into more about current situation. And there should be a kind of a overlap sometime in the future when maybe in 3 years' time or something, when more about a now and future sections coming. But I strongly believe that there's nothing we can think of the future without thinking about the past. So this can really develop something because there's really nothing written in the history. So, you Google Takano Hatsue, what do you find? What you find is someone asking if Takano Hatsue is the person who passed 7th and the first time in the history. That's all I could find in a Google search. And so nothing written there, or no books. There are a few articles written about her. What about Kobayashi sensei? No book about her. Some articles, interviews, but really thin. So the archive is really thin about female kendo. It's almost trying to eliminate female kendo in the past from the history. We can't let that happen. And that's part of the reason I'm doing this. And so write it down, publish it so it's there. We can't ignore them. And of course, I want to see people talking more broadly, internationally, and exchange ideas. I need to study more about, situation in Japan. I am Japanese and I grew up there, but there's some strange things happening in the media. So you heard things like, Olympic committee president resigning and things like that due to comments about the gender sensitive issues. I think some kind of education needs to be happening throughout kind of worldwide ideas, because what they have in Japan may not be the same in Europe, America. They're all slightly different, the gender issues. And there's some very strong feeling coming from other members of the female kendo group that I have. This gender issue is very deep. So we need to touch that as well in the magazine some way or another. And so that's, again, discussing and exchanging ideas and develop ideas on what female kendo should be without gender issue or with gender issue and how we deal with it is a big topic, but we're going to come into that soon.
Okay, that sounds great. It's going to be really interesting to see how the magazine develops. So can you tell us what your homepage is? So if people are interested in your magazine, how can they read it? How can they get it?
So it's fineladieskendo.com. That's the website. And it's all there. Homepage has all the list of issues. Volume 1 still on sale. What's coming up, Volume 2, and the contents all there. And we have the magazine. You need to become a member to get into that page. The magazine, the digital magazines there. And the videos all there as well, and free articles. You don't need to become a member to read the free articles. Then we also have forum, and we are running also a monthly vote. So you're voting this month. Our question is, do you think the female grading examination should be separate from the male and then people just vote yes or no. And then at the end of the month, we're going to discuss that topic. So every month we have a topic and people vote. And then ideally we discuss that in the forum. There's nothing much happening at the moment because Facebook is really just so easy access and people just comment on the Facebook. So we can't stop that happening. But the idea is that we start talking more of those kind of possibly crucial issues, things like the grading. And we also had last month about the discrimination issue. Very, very shockingly, we had together experienced and witnessed discrimination. Something like 77% said yes.
Wow, that's huge.
That's huge, and that's shocking. And that's possibly just the top of the iceberg, So these things cannot be ignored. We need to do something. But unless we start questioning people, they don't talk. So other thing we want to do is to, make them aware that we're here. So you can voice if you need to. But yes, we are not consultation groups, so we're just a platform where people can start talking. And if necessary, they might need to go somewhere else to resolve their issues. But unless this is happening, they might just leave, So some people said they just left when they had the discrimination experience happened. So, the topics will come up every month and people are welcome to vote.
Fantastic. So just once again, I urge you to go out and support Kazuyo's magazine, and you can find it at fineladieskendo.com, where they have a hard copy paper issue and a digital copy. And as Kazuyo's explained, all the other different things on their homepage as well. So we've already got issue 1 out, and issue 2 will be coming out in August. Kazuyo, could you hold it up again if you have it in front of you? So I think you'll need to say something so that the camera goes to you.
Oh, so here's the magazine, volume 1. And we have all the very interesting things. Here are the 3 pioneers' interviews and very interesting articles here, all about female kendo. So here's us. I'm on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram as well. You can follow us or just come and visit our page and then join us.
Fantastic. Well, we'll put all of the details for your social media stuff in the description under the video. So Kazuyo, best of luck with Fine Ladies Kendo, Fine Ladies Kendo Worldwide. I think it's a great thing that you're doing, and we look forward to seeing how it develops in the future. And thank you very much for spending an hour talking to us on a Saturday afternoon. Thank you very much, Kazuyo Matsuda.
Thank you so much, Michael, for having me today and giving me a great opportunity to talk about this magazine. And thank you for your support.
No problem. It's been great to talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you.